Welcome to my show. J Infinity here. We'll be talking about the expanding universe today, red shifts. Hubble discovered something when he saw a red light coming from galaxies far away through the telescope, so much that he had to share with Einstein himself, who believed that the universe was actually not expanding or collapsing, rather it was static. Well, what is the truth? Welcome to my show, Illegal Science. I'm J Infinity. We're going to get right into this. The Big Bang Theory suggests that, well, you have to pardon, I have some wind coming in, apparently. And it's not me, it's Mother Nature. Anyway, as I was saying, Big Bang Theory would suggest that everything in the universe came from one point in time, well actually before time even existed. This is where it gets really interesting. There was a point where we were able to determine that the universe was not static anymore, but instead it's expanding. And even furthermore, we realized that from that red shift we saw from distant galaxies and galaxy clusters, that we're able to determine quite a bit of different things that we couldn't reason upon before. And the more and more that we go into the future, we're able to get more evidence into what the universe really consists of. Now, because the universe is so vast and so incredibly dynamic, I would always say that it's rather like several orchestras playing all together the same music. Because if you think about it, the four fundamental forces of nature would extend throughout all the ends of the universe: the electromagnetic force, the subatomic forces, and gravity. Is there another force out there? Well, there's something causing an expansion, which gravity alone could not do. In fact, you need a force that's countering gravity. A force that counters gravity itself, that's right. We call this dark energy. This mysterious form of energy cannot be detected. It can only be observed by the fact that it has an effect on the entire universe. Somewhat like dark matter that has been observed by the way it bends light. And we see that there's something out there that's greater than our understanding. Dark matter being something without properties that can be tested or even observed. Dark matter is said to be 5 times greater than that of regular matter in our universe, which would comprise maybe a 4% of the entire space of universal existence as we know it. Interesting, is it not? I'm J Infinity. This is the Illegal Science Show. Why is it illegal? Because they would tell you that the Big Bang Theory is not just a theory, but is true. There's no need for a creator. There's no need for intelligence. There's no need for a consciousness before time, space, matter, and energy. All of these things just were kind of born out of nothing, and chaos arranged all of these things in a way that they were perfectly dynamic, in a sequence precisely contained within entity that is called the universe, ever expanding since the point of origin. If we rewind the clock and go back all the way to the beginning, to one single point. Some would say maybe a grapefruit, something you can hold in your hand, or even smaller than that, such as a particle, something you couldn't even see. But from all of that, an accidental explosion occurred, creating everything that we know of, all of existence. All of these forces, including dark matter, dark energy, which we can't see. They're called dark because they're invisible. There's no way to detect these things by the way we usually detect things, such as planets or stars, or even black holes. Do black holes exist? They're a theory, but there's a lot of evidence showing that black holes do truly exist. It's an interesting place, the universe. A dynamic field of energy and matter. A symphony again, is what I see. Clusters of galaxies being held together by forces, gravity being one. But what is holding even these clusters together in a way where they are all expanding in a uniform way, as all the clusters of galaxies expand away from each other, creating even more space in between. A chance, perhaps, to create even more galaxies. New cosmic wonderlands. What we observe in the universe is something spectacular. Something that would appear to be infinite, yet it had a beginning. Because we see an expanding universe rather than a collapsing one. We can see something that is being sustained at a constant level, a frequency, one single frequency sustaining all of existence, the universe. Yes, one sustaining force, sustaining all of existence. All the forces working together dynamically in order to create these cycles that we see, in order to achieve life on Earth. Earth would not be possible if these forces were slightly off, just even a tad. If the expanding universe was expanding too rapidly, then the universe would collapse. Rather, we see sustained life for billions and billions of years. An Earth that is so old, that has had life on it for millions of years. To think at where we are on the timeline, yet the universe is still sustained by the very frequency that it all began with. Something steady and constant. Otherwise, it would have never assembled. I know that's a hard idea to grasp, but let us think about that. In order to really achieve an understanding of our universe, let's go to the origin, to that point, to the beginning. Arche, in Greek, the beginning. what is that very point? Some would say that the universe is actually expanding only to collapse on itself again. What do you think? Welcome to Illegal Science. This is your host, J Infinity. We're talking about Big Bang Theory. An explosion at the beginning of time. It all came from one singularity, one little point. And we see an explosion assembling the first particles, atoms. These atoms somehow learning to create structure in a quantum world that we are discovering. Particles interacting in a way where they have some kind of consciousness, and they assemble themselves in a way that is ingenious since the beginning. There had to be some sort of field for the explosion to even go into, because there was no time, space, matter, or any force that existed before. There was a point in time, an origin to it all. Did it contract and then explode again? Is there an oscillating universe which expands and then simply collapses after billions and billions of years of existence, only to collapse on itself back into that point of origin, only to again explode? An oscillating universe would not explain the origin of neither time, space, matter, or energy, leaving us with the question, where did it all come from? What is the origin of it all? Rather, we have to look at that very source, the beginning. What was before that? Some would say it doesn't matter. Someone like Stephen Hawking, for example, would not believe there could be a creator behind it all, a consciousness, a God. Rather, math was the source of everything. Quantum configurations, a formula, brought everything into existence, constructing consciousness as it evolved in its cosmological setting. You might ask yourself, how is this possible? Does matter itself have a consciousness, able to construct itself into sophisticated patterns that in turn interlock with other sophisticated patterns in order to create more sophisticated patterns? Do you see where I'm getting? It's sophisticated. There's patterns. What else can we conclude when we look out in a telescope? Even when we look in a microscope, we see configuration patterns, elements working together, laws. There are laws of constant motion, a sustaining force, one single frequency. Some would argue there is multiverse, the great multiverse I give to you. Again, we find a problem. If there's some kind of mechanism, machine out there creating multiple universes, such as the one we live in, where life is possible, well, where did that machine come from, and how is it able to create the tuning and configuration, almost as it had a consciousness able to program things, even if it were at random. The random numeration in programs would still be considered information, even though it was jumbled information that needed decoding over time. If all the information was there at the beginning, and it just needed to be decoded and broken down, and now we have things such as DNA, which is information, or perhaps we think of gravity in relation to electromagnetic force, or the electromagnetic force in comparison to the subatomic forces, the weak atomic force and the strong subatomic force. All of these things interacting with something as sophisticated as dark energy, which is invisible but is creating the expanding force of the universe, countering gravity, yet all being tuned, and since the beginning, all being sustained by the same force and frequency, creating the cycles, grand ballet, stretching out the heavens like a fine gauze, placing all of its entities with none of them missing, but all there in their entirety. The universe is a magnificent place, a place that brings one joy and awe when one looks out into the heavens and reaches out to see what is truly there. Not only is there a great number of stars, 2 trillion stars perhaps, in an ancient universe that is really young as it continues to grow in an infinite age. What we see is not what we've been told, that nothing created everything. Even our very soul and our very nature to love comes from nothing. From a randomness, a chaos, a quantum physical mathematical formula that has created all of existence, or perhaps there is something greater that lies beneath it all, beyond the origin, something transcendent. Perhaps, just perhaps.